Chronic illness is the single greatest threat to our health, to our quality and quantity of life, to our economy, and to our standard of living. By 2017, spending on chronic illness will reach 4.3 trillion in the US alone. That's 12 billion per day, 500 million per hour, and over $8 million per minute. Dr. Matt states that lifestyle is the cause of chronic illness, and lifestyle is the only evidence-based solution for the prevention and recovery from chronic illness. Dr. Matt, what do you mean by foundational human health or wellness?
Well, wellness, like chiropractic, is really best described and best understood as a concept or a paradigm, which determines the scientific and clinical questions that we seek answers to. So the concept of wellness seemed to originate as a reaction to the Western medicine's approach to the concept of health. Health in the Western medicine paradigm came to be defined as a lack of disease or a lack of a medical diagnosis. And this is still truly the case. I often read medical research which describes the people being studied as healthy subjects. Of course, healthy subject within the medical paradigm refers to a subject without a medical diagnosis, not a patient who is in a state of homeostasis or balanced function, who is physically fit, who eats a healthy diet, and who has high levels of self-esteem and life satisfaction. For example, in the RCT model, you can have two control groups for a diabetes study. One group has diabetes, the other doesn't, which in this model, Western medicine assumes the group without the diabetes diagnosis is a healthy subject. Well, that group could have major diseases like cancers and addictions to drugs and alcohol, or smoke 3 packs of cigarettes per day. As long as they are not diabetic in this model, they are considered a healthy subject. Well, that's absurd, but that is exactly correct in these models when you do not satisfactorily define a healthy subject. Wellness, as far as I can discern from the literature, is really nothing more than the concept of holistic health, or perhaps ecosystem health. Wellness is a term used to define health as a holistic concept that incorporates body and mind, that views the human being as an ecosystem. Wellness is not some short-lived concept or some new age idea. Being well means expressing our genetic potential for health in body and mind. The wellness paradigm recognizes that every cell, tissue, organ, and system works synergistically to form and maintain a healthy ecosystem. Humans are genetically programmed to strive for balanced function and healthy adaptation. As I hope you can see, this definition of wellness really advances the ideas of health when compared to that antiquated model being used by Western medicine. Health in the wellness paradigm is really a state of balanced function and adaptation. Health and homeostatic function, or balanced function, are thus synonymous.
How is health and homeostasis a state of balanced function, especially mental health?
Okay, the easy answer to your question is this, but first you must realize that from a holistic ecosystem health perspective, we cannot speak of mental well-being without speaking about all 5 facets of health. And I use a metaphor, what I call our 5 pillars. Using this metaphor, 3 out of the 5 pillars that I teach deal with mental well-being. Understand that a breakdown on one of these 5 pillars is enough to break that foundation that these pillars are built upon and thus lead to any disease. If wellness is a state of holistic ecosystem health, then wellness is a state of physical, intellectual, and emotional health. It's not possible to be well or healthy unless you are simultaneously expressing balanced function and adaptation in all 3 domains. Each domain has an equal influence on the others. They're in a state of codependence. They form an indissoluble union. Besides the union between balanced function, adaptation, and health, there are some other defining concepts of the wellness paradigm. In the wellness paradigm, A body mind is seen as innately or inherently intelligent, as self-healing and self-regulating, within limits, of course. Health is considered the natural state. Living organisms are genetically or innately programmed for health. They are programmed to continually strive for balanced function and to adapt to whatever environment they are exposed to in the most intelligent way possible with respect to survival and healing, growth, and repair.
What is the difference between the Western medicine paradigm and the wellness paradigm?
Medicine paradigm, chronic illness is seen to stem from bad luck, bad germs, or bad genes. Humans are seen to be genetically pre-programmed for cancer, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, depression, etc. Chronic illness and disease are considered inevitable phenomena, and as a result of pathogenic germs and or pathological genes expressing pathological cells, tissue, organ, and system function. And this idea is antiquated. By the way, since 2012 and the Human Microbiome Project, we know that we have 10 times the amount of cells in our bodies in the form of thousands of different species of bacteria that live in symbiosis in and on our bodies, organs, glands, and tissues. If we have 75 trillion cells in our bodies, we have 10 times that coming from bacteria living in symbiosis with us, if that's the case. How can it be about germs? I want to drive this message home to you. It's not about what you inherit or what germs you got exposed to, within reason. Ebola is a different story. I get that. But when you look at the literature, we are not dying from bad germs. We are dying and exposing our DNA to toxins and deficiencies that pass 3 generations epigenetically due to our daily lifestyle choices. Our 5 pillars, our poor strategies in how we eat, think, move, connect, and cope with stressors is what's causing us to die. Medicine paradigm is in diametric opposition to the wellness paradigm, which views humans and other living organisms as genetically programmed for balanced function and adaptation. Health is the innate, genetically programmed goal of living organisms, and illness is based on adaptation to a pathological, toxic, or deficient environment. God doesn't predestine us for sickness, and evolution doesn't give rise to a newer generation of death. These states are occurring because of a toxin or a deficiency in the environment, not divine intervention or evolutionary selection. In fact, 95% of illness is not genetic, and some experts debate that there is an epigenetic variant caused by a toxin or deficiency as far as 3 generations later that can cause illness, even mental. You may have inherited a mutated gene, but the causative factors lie in how you express the gene you inherit. In most cases, the expression of your genes is determined by how well you eat, move, think, connect, and cope with stress, not predetermined genes or genetic destiny. When we refer to the scientific journals, science and logic both seem to support the wellness hypothesis. Chronic illness has been increasing exponentially over the past decades. How could this be to genetics? I often ask whether or not the Western medicine genetic hypothesis of human disease would even be considered for any other species. When all the fish in the Great Lakes started getting tumors, and their fertility rates dropped, and the birds that ate them began to die and have brittle eggs, would any biologist actually have been taken seriously had they blamed the genes of the fish and the birds? Of course not. In the history of biology, has there ever been a rapid decrease in health or increase in disease incidence within a species that has ever been shown to be genetic? Let's not forget that humans are an animal species. It is no more logical to blame genes for the rapid increase in human illness than it would be for fish or birds or lions or chimpanzees. The problem is that many of us have been fooled into thinking that humans are somehow immune and may live outside the natural laws that govern every other species. It seems to me that this thought pattern dominates Western medicine. What has changed over the last century? Our genes or our lifestyle choices, and thus the expression of our genes? The answer is self-evident. It's not genetic, it's epigenetic. It's the environment. More specifically, it's your environment. That's my mantra. I feel strongly that the study of healthology, a term not even in the dictionary, comes from the study of physiology and biology. This is where the answers to wellness questions will be found in the near future, and not in the study of pathology, which is the focus of the West. Studying how to treat sick people does not provide answers about how to promote the expression of health and wellness, or how to prevent illness, nor does it address the real causes of the illnesses. And that is the key difference our office offers than most anyone else out there. And that includes chiropractors. Somehow, as a society, we thought we should rely on medical doctors, who are sickness providers and pathology experts, to give us advice on health. Yet nothing within the Western medicine paradigm studies or teaches any concept on true health and wellness. They have diagnosis of a disease and early detection of a disease. There is no correct concept for wellness and prevention, despite what you hear and see in the pharmaceutical advertising, because they do not study health, period. A mammogram doesn't prevent a thing. It's a detection tool, not a preventive tool. Understand? The answers to defining the new study of health, or healthology as I like to call it, come from different facets of research. And the most exciting comes after the Human Genome Project and the sequencing of the human DNA. On our genome, we learn what the definition of health really is.
We have all been taught that disease is genetic. What evidence do you have to support that most disease is not genetic?
So many to talk about here. So I'll talk about the key ones. From a genetic standpoint, humans living today are Stone Age hunter-gatherers displaced throughout time to a world that differs from that for which our genetic constitution was selected. And there is an increasing evidence that the resulting mismatch fosters diseases of civilization that together cause 75% of all deaths in Western nations, but that are rare among persons whose lifeways reflect those of our pre-agricultural ancestors. And according to the literature, the other 25% of deaths are virtually all due to accidents and trauma, and believe it or not, medical intervention. Currently, modern chronic diseases, including cardiovascular diseases, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and cancer, are the leading killers in westernized society and are increasing rampantly in developing nations. In fact, obesity, diabetes, and hypertension are now even commonplace in children. Clearly, however, there is a solution to this epidemic of metabolic disease that is inundating today's society worldwide: exercise and diet, and thinking or attitude. Overwhelming evidence from a variety of sources links most chronic diseases seen in the world today to physical inactivity and inappropriate diet consumption, and emotional and psychosocial factors. There is now unequivocal evidence in the literature supporting the notion that all environmental factors combined, including physical inactivity, defined here as activity of equivalent of less than 30 minutes of brisk walking per day, account for the majority of chronic health conditions. And these conditions are characterized as chronic because they are slow in progression and long in continuance. Indeed, environmental factors have been identified as 58 to 91% of causal factors for three of the most dominant chronic health conditions afflicting individuals in modern-day America. Type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease, and most site-specific cancers. And this is a dramatic shift in the preponderance of incidence of such conditions that once were very rare. A Scandinavian twin study showed that 58 to 100% of site-specific cancers had an environmental origin. The Harvard Center for Cancer Prevention in a 1996 report estimated that of the total number of cancer deaths, 30% were due to tobacco, 30% to adult diet and obesity, 5% to occupational factors, and 2% to environmental pollution. This report predated much of the work regarding exercise's preventive effect on many site-specific cancers. A total of 91% of the cases of type 2 diabetes and 82% of the coronary artery disease cases and 84,000 female nurses could be attributed to habits of so-called high-risk behavior. Thus, the majority of deaths from chronic health conditions in the United States and around the world are of environmental origin. The greatest understanding we all need from the Pillars Blueprint is this. In the wellness paradigm, illness, like health, is defined in reference to homeostasis, or balanced function, and healthy adaptation. Illness is defined as a lack of homeostasis, or perhaps more accurately, as a state of adaptation. Illness does not represent an inherent error or breakdown, but rather a state of adaptive physiology in response to an environment that is not congruent within the requirements for the genetic expression of balanced function. Illness does not represent pathological function. It represents an intelligent state of adaptation aimed at survival in a stressful or genetically incongruent or pathological environment. The environment is pathological, not the physiological response to it. I need to repeat that. The environment is pathological, not the physiological response to it. And we know that changing our environment, how well we eat, move, think, connect, and cope with stress always changes our physiology. Let me give you an analogy. It's called the iceberg story. So in this analogy of the iceberg, imagine yourself naked on an iceberg. And in this kind of, say you're in Alaska, and what's going to happen, obviously, is you're going to take blood away from your big toe. It's going to go to your brain. It's going to go to your heart. Why? Because you need to survive. So the fact that you get gangrene in your toe doesn't represent a pathology, does it? And be careful here. You'd say, well, the toe is a pathological dysfunction. And I would say, no, it's not. It's a healthy state of adaptation. And why is that? Well, because the brain and the heart need the blood. So the body, intelligent, in order to survive, adapts to the environmental situation you're in. You're naked on an iceberg. It's pulling blood away from the big toe so that you can survive. That's a normal adaptive function we humans have. The problem is we're not programmed genetically to stay in that environment long term. And that's what's really sparking the chronic disease. So the big point here is that just because you have a symptom doesn't mean something's wrong. It might be an intelligent adaptation your body is doing to buy you survival time so that you can survive and adapt.
So what does a true wellness practitioner do?
Well, the most logical response to this question is to state that a wellness practitioner offers interventions that result in movement to the body-mind toward or back to a state of balanced function or homeostasis and healthy adaptation. Sounds simple enough, I know, but there seems to be a lot of confusion surrounding the concept and practice of true wellness, especially in the media. I think the first thing that must be done is to start thinking and researching within the wellness paradigm. On our genome, we can study what nutrients we need for the eat, think, move, connect, and cope with stress mechanisms for the human genome, and for any species for that matter. We could update the RDA for nutrition, which is based in pathology, not the human genetic requirements for nutrition. And the most important research questions within the wellness paradigm must be aimed at discovering what the human genetic requirements are in order to express balanced function and adaptation. In other words, if we know that the body is programmed to express balanced function, that the body has the innate genetic blueprint to be able to express balanced function, what we need then is to find out what raw materials are required. And these raw materials are environmental to express physiological balanced function. Humans must live in a homeostatic or genetically congruent environment. Our state of physiology, our state of health, is the genetic expression of our environment. I need to repeat that one. In fact, write this statement down. Our state of physiology, our state of health, is the genetic expression of our eat, move, think, connect, and cope with stress environment. In the Pillars Blueprint program, I teach you how to live a genetically congruent lifestyle. We need to eat, move, think, connect, and cope with stressors congruently within our genome. We need to make the lifestyle choices that supply sufficient amounts of raw materials and avoid things that are toxic. If we are programmed for homeostasis, then the only reason we are not in state of balanced function is because we are deficient in something. We require or toxic with something that is poisonous or stressful. Homeostasis and health are really dependent upon a balanced function. Lifestyle, because lifestyle is really the ultimate determinant or whether or not we will express homeostasis or a state of adaptation and illness. Wellness practitioners then must be experts in genetically congruent lifestyle choices and how to role model, teach, coach, inspire, and empower patients to adopt them. Wellness scientists need to use epigenetic gene-expressive profiling methods, which are currently being done to understand mechanisms at the epigenome level to provide better drug therapies. Wellness scientists need to understand these mechanisms to understand what essential requirements humans have in the eat, move, think, connect, and cope with stress environments. At the level of the epigenome, you see, this will provide true and accurate levels for new recommended daily allowances for nutrition, as well as updated fitness recommendations specific for our genome. The evidence is overwhelming. The causes of the current pandemic of chronic illness, over 80% of the globe, and the solutions to it are found in lifestyle choices. How well we use our 5 pillars each day as a member of the human species. Wellness experts then must be experts in lifestyle choices that promote the expression or homeostasis or balanced function. Chiropractic care reestablishes motion intersegmentally. That means we reestablish motion in all 25 vertebrae, which we know allows proper nerve expression to every tissue, cell, and organ in the body. And a PhD study showing a 200% increase of immune function following an adjustment. So it's true prevention. Also, from Roger Sperry, a Nobel Prize winner, tells us that over 90% of the nutrition that gets to the brain comes from the movement of the spine. Therefore, this concept of neurogenesis and brain plasticity, or neurons that fire together, wired together, comes from proper movement of the spine. These are the reasons wellness chiropractic providers, like our office, recommend having your spine routinely checked, regardless as to whether or not you have symptoms or are in pain. Movement is essential to life. Movement is required to exchange materials across the cell membrane. Stop planet Earth from moving along its axis, scientists tell us we would all die. Movement is essential to life. Immobility is a potent promoter of chronic disease. Chiropractic wellness care is a scientific, evidence-based model of care that helps promote proper genetic expression, nerve expression, and a better indicator toward health expression than our current sickness care model. It is safe, effective, and for pennies a day, families can provide access to a good trained wellness chiropractor. And you need to be preventing and engaged in a lifestyle that has proven benefits. The AMA itself admits that lifestyle changes is the answer. It's just they don't believe you will engage in healthier lifestyle habits. I say teach the people the truth that it's not genetic, it's epigenetic, it's the environment. And then provide a simple strategy, tools that any family from any geography, race, financial background can do each day to live better and avoid bankruptcy in the family due to chronic illness. I don't know if you know this, but chronic illness is the #1 reason families go bankrupt in this country. It just makes better sense to engage in health care that is truly focused on prevention and wellness, and that dangerous synthetic chemicals we call medicine should never be first choice when it comes to protecting our health and family. Give the community true health preventative resources and understanding, and watch them change, watch them heal, watch them live. I understand a doctor doesn't earn a dime teaching their patients to eat an apple a day. But our oath as physicians is to do no harm first. Better lifestyle choices and correcting sedentary spiral joints so that patient can utilize the nutrients they get from their environment always is safer and more effective. Nature needs no help, just no interference. The less man interferes with nature, the healthier we are. That is genetically congruent living. That's the future of true healthcare. That's how we are reinventing healthcare at New Life Family Chiropractic Center. And it works for everyone within reason. Despite your symptom or your diagnosis, changing environment to a genetically congruent environment for humans always changes physiology. And that's true epigenetically. It's turning on the good genes and it's switching off the bad genes. All this, not a philosophy, but a science, evidence-based. Epigenetics, actually. The world needs wellness chiropractic providers. History, science, and clinical experience indicate there is no other viable solution.
I love it. 5 simple things to think about each day, and it can make a significant change in my health. Now that's something I can do.